Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lawn Road Podcast. My name is Gabe Gooden. I'm the owner of Kaleo Lawn Care, and I am on the lawn road to building the best residential lawn care company in Colorado Springs, and this podcast is simply documenting my journey in doing that. So if you guys are new, thanks for being here. If you guys are returning, excited to continue this journey with you all. Today I want to talk a little bit about the cold side of the lawn care industry, aka snow removal. For a lot of people, this is more of a necessary evil. For myself, I kind of flip-flop between the two. Sometimes I really enjoy it. Other times it is not my favorite. But it's worth talking about because it is an important part of just the work that we do. And I think most landscape and lawn care companies provide snow removal. Some might do like pressure washing as a winter season service. But I think a lot of people do snow. So I think it's worth having a discussion about it. I've been doing professional snow removal for a while. The company that I originally got into the industry working for, that was the first thing I did for them. Is I was hired on as a snow removal tech, and that was kind of my first taste of manual labor and working outdoors, and it was an interesting. It was an interesting experience. I think I was 14 when I did my first storm. I might have been 13, turning 14. I have a December birthday. And I remember that first storm, I think I was out 14 hours, and it was just slushy snow. I will never forget it. And it was by no means the hardest storm I did, but it just holds a special spot in my mind as far as the first one I ever did. Yeah, and I've done a lot. I did snow removal for 5 years with this company, 5 full seasons. I also worked for them to do, cutting grass and install, but over the winter did snow. And there were a couple of storms. If you guys live in Colorado and remember the 2019 bomb cyclone, I forget how many inches of snow actually fell, but it was a lot of snow. I worked back-to-back 16-hour shifts with a 5-hour break in the middle. This is not plowing. We had snow raiders and some snow blowers, but a lot of it was physical work with our hands, with a shovel. I broke, we used the Bigfoot, like the orange Bigfoot shovels, the push shovels. Everybody, I think, uses those. I think I broke 6 that storm because of how slushy the snow was, and there was a lot of ice as well, and it was just a mess of a storm. But I think I hold the record at that company for the most shovels broken, and those shovels ain't cheap, so that was kind of unfortunate. Another storm I remember, we called it the 12 Dwarf Storm. My best friend was working with me at the time at this company, and so because we had these early call-outs, every once in a while I'd go bunk at his house so we could just drive over together at 1 or 2 in the morning. And I remember this one storm, I was over there because there was a chance of snow, but it was very low, but we decided to do it anyway. And I don't know what time we went to sleep. Usually we tried to stay up until call-out, between midnight and 2, just so we didn't get drowsy from sleeping. And it got to like 2 a.m. and we were essentially told, don't worry about it. Like, go to sleep. We're not going to need you guys tonight. So we went to sleep. We wake up and there's a foot of snow outside. And it had been this really weird storm where the snow kind of like hesitated and delayed until like 6 a.m. and then just dumped like a foot in 2 hours. And we woke up and we're like scrambling to throw our gear on because everybody's already out working, and we slept through all of our alarms, all of our calls, notifications, because we were just told we were good, and a ton of snow fell that night. And then I do remember the horrible feeling of I did it for 5 or 6 seasons, I don't remember how many, and I only missed one storm in 5 or 6 seasons, and I slept through the call out. And my supervisor has relayed the story to me where he called me at 2 a.m. and I picked up the phone and he said, "Hey, you coming in?" He called me for call out. He's like, "Hey, can you be at the lot in 15 minutes?" I was like, "Sure." Set the phone down, went right back to sleep, woke up, 10 hours later, and the storm was over. Everybody had already gone home, and I felt so bad. But there was nothing like, we called it snow sleep. There is nothing like it in the industry where you are waiting for the call out. It is a horrible time where you can't decide if you should try to sleep for a couple hours and risk missing the call or being drowsy, or just try to blow through it and stay up and risk being extra tired or staying up for no reason if you don't need to go out. And there would be times where it made you feel ill especially multiple storms in a row where your sleep cycle is just completely jacked. And I remember countless times if we would have been out for 12 hours plus, especially like, uh, you go out at night, you come back at night. So it's always dark. I mean, there's the daylight, but like that's just kind of how your brain plays the game. You started the day at night and you ended at night. I remember I would go to sleep and I would have snow sleep, and my all of my dreams for the next 10 hours, however long I slept, was just me pushing snow with a shovel. And it was like hallucinations. It was horrible. Um, Speaking of hallucinations, I only had one hallucination that I can remember during all of those shifts, and it was during the bomb cyclone I was talking about. We worked 32 hours. I think I technically worked 40 hours that storm. And let me tell you real quick. So I started the storm. The storm came in Saturday night. So I forget when we started the storm, when we went out, but we went out Saturday night. At the time, I was leading worship for my church, and I had to lead worship practice at 6 a.m. So I worked until 4 a.m., went home, and I couldn't drive at the time, so I was dropped off at home. I took a shower, went to church, led rehearsal at 6:30. Then I led the service at 10 a.m. Went and upstairs and took a nap on a sofa, or tried to, for an hour during the sermon. Came back down, went and led the last song for the church service. And mind you, there are 500 people at this church. I remember not being able to read my music or anything, but I was trying to lead, so I was trying to talk and lead the congregation. And then my crew came and picked me up from church at like 11 a.m. We then worked the rest of the shift, went home for 5 hours, took a nap, went out for another 16 hours, and it was just this whole mess. And I remember at the end of the shift, shoveling snow, and all of the snow turned into little white spiders, and it all started moving. And that's when I knew I was like, I need to go to sleep. And I was afraid of spiders. And there was just like, it was just a ocean of little white spiders all around. Anyway, so those are the memories I have during snow. There's definitely a bond that you build with snow removal techs and your crew, and you're out for long hours and you're kind of at war, and that's how it feels. And those memories I will never forget. And the people that I worked with for those 5 years, and my crew was pretty consistent over the 5 years. Those people, we have an eternal bond, and it's like we went to war together. But I would say more often than not, when I think back about snow removal, it is not, oh, I wish I could go back. It's, I am so glad I don't have to do that anymore. And that was commercial snow removal. So it was huge properties, lots of snow, lower tolerances, all that. But I want to talk a little bit about how, and I'm not going to name the company, and none of what I'm going to talk about I think they're doing wrong. This is more the difference between commercial and residential, but there are things I changed from my experience with that company for very specific reasons when I switched to residential. So for one, the equipment that we used was big and loud. So we were using Snow Raiders, the Boss Snow Raiders. If you guys are familiar with those, incredible pieces of equipment, incredibly powerful, great for snow, stupid loud. We also had just dozens of snow blowers. And the problem is, on commercial sites, no issues. We also did a lot of HOAs. If you guys remember me talking about it in the past, I maintained like 12 HOAs. So when we were doing snow removal for those areas, using that equipment on driveways and front porches between midnight and 4 a.m., to me always seemed a little weird. Now, there was no way around it given how big these properties were, but I knew the entire neighborhood was awake the entire time we were there. It was essentially the assumption, and that was tough. But again, there wasn't a whole lot of way around that. We did still use shovels. The crew that I led when I became crew lead, and I had my crew of 4 or whatever, I slowly introduced more shoveling rather than equipment for that reason. It also looked better. And so by the end of my time at that company, my crew was primarily using shovels unless it was like 8 inches plus. Call out time is similar to what I'm doing now, but it was really just based on when the snow fell. But usually between midnight and 2 would be our call out time to get as many of those commercial properties cleared by the time they opened, which was usually 8 a.m. One thing that was kind of frustrating at that company, again, not a hit because I get it, especially now that I own a business. This makes more sense to me, but there was kind of a forced break before you'd hit overtime. And we already got a raise. I think it was like a $5 an hour raise for snow based on our seasonal wage. But it'd be frustrating sometimes when you would work 12 hours and there was still a lot of work to do, and they would send you home as a rest, which was true, but also it reset your clock, and so you wouldn't always hit overtime. So that was a bit of a frustration, but again, I understand why they do it. That's a lot of people to pay a lot of money, and they need mandatory breaks by law. So again, totally understand. A little frustrating at times. So with that in mind, now I do residential snow. Okay, so I don't do any commercial properties. Most of my snow accounts are simply my lawn care clients who are signed up for yearly packages. It's called the Kaleo Lawn Care package. It's everything your property needs year round, one contract, one monthly payment. And so I don't advertise it as like a separate service yet. I may, but right now I primarily just do it for my already contracted lawn care clients. And first of all, residential is much better. Okay, it doesn't matter how many properties you have; it's faster than commercial. There's just less concrete to maintain, so that's super nice. One, I love that you're out of the truck for 20-30 minutes, then you get back in and warm up and drive to the next one, and it just makes the night move faster because you're only at properties for, maybe an hour tops. When on commercial, you could be at a property for 12 hours. No kidding. And so it feels more like it's easier to check box, kind of just move down your route. It feels more productive and makes the night go faster. So I love doing that. I love that I can do residential snow removal well by only using shovels. Again, I am on clients' residential properties on their front porches, around their garage doors, and a lot of bedrooms hang over the garage door. So it allows me, because they're smaller properties, it allows me to use more residential friendly tools, primarily shovels. On the website and in the contract, I mentioned that shovels are our first choice, but we aren't afraid to use equipment if necessary. So if it's anywhere under, honestly, if it's under a foot and it's not too slushy or heavy, then we'll always use shovels regardless. No driveway is too big for shovels, in my opinion. The other day, at the beginning of November, actually, which we broke records, we got 30 inches in a day. And I was bringing out equipment at that point. Because at that point, and it was more during the day, but it was less about disturbance once it got to that much snow, and more about just getting people access out of their houses. So that was more of a speed game than a lack of disturbance game, if you catch my meaning. But even then, the equipment I used was electric. So as you guys know from previous episodes, I use Ego tools, Ego electric battery powered tools. I think they're called Ego Power Plus. Excellent line of equipment. But they also provide a lot of snow removal tools. So they have stage 1 snow blower, stage 2. They have electric snow shovels, which is what I use, which is essentially a mini snow blower attachment for your trimmer. And it's like more of a snow thrower. But you can still adjust the direction that the snow throws. And it's really powerful. So I was blowing through a foot of snow, no issues. And that made my job way easier. And as I was able to get through these bigger properties much faster. So that's primarily what I do. But my priority for snow doing residential is to not wake up my clients. And sometimes that's not possible. So my second priority is not waking up my clients' neighbors. Okay? And I have this belief that my client has hired me to do this work and to have their property cleared by a certain time when enough snow falls. The neighbors around them should not have to pay for it too by losing sleep. All right? Because that's a cost for them as well. And that does multiple things that I think are to the detriment of both reputations, mine as the business and my clients as the neighbor. For one, yeah, obviously they're not going to be thrilled with me. My company name that they look out their window at 3 a.m. and who's making all that noise? Kaleo Lawn Care. Ooh, those are the guys waking me up every night. That's not good for my company name. That's not helpful. At the same time, they're going to look at me and then they're going to look up to see who hired me to wake everybody up at 2 a.m. That's not good for the neighbor. This is a service that, in my opinion, is supposed to increase the status of a neighbor, okay? Of somebody living in a neighborhood, kind of showing like I have the resources to have these services provided. That is a good thing, in my opinion. What's not a good thing is when those services are a disturbance or an inconvenience to everybody else. It goes from, wow, look at them, like they're able to hire full service maintenance companies, to, gosh, would they just stop making such a loud noise every night? It's two different things. So I don't want my client to wake up and be disturbed. But at the end of the day, they're paying for it and they know what they're getting into. And so if I have to wake somebody up, I'd rather it be them, and they will be far more understanding than the people on either side of them or across the street. So that's a huge thing. Keeping it as quiet as I can with shovels is a huge priority for me. It also shows professionalism and just that I've given it thought. It's consideration. It's a considerate thing to do, and the neighbors would recognize that. To be able to wake up and look over and your neighbor's property is already cleared and shoveled, and you didn't even know they were there. That's huge on both fronts. Again, bumps their status up as the neighbor, gives me a good name as the company, and potentially increases the chances of other people wanting that service because it's not a disturbance. Okay, so a quiet service and professionalism. Something else that just really makes my heart glad when it comes to snow removal is doing it for elderly clients, because there's two sides of the service industry, right? There's the luxury side of the industry, which is primarily what I do. And all I mean by that is people who hire me that don't need me, all right, who are purely just trying to save time in their week, be able to get a little more done, or just don't enjoy cutting grass or shoveling snow. That's the luxury side of the service industry. Then there's the necessity side of the service industry, and those are people that cannot physically do the work. And it doesn't matter the situation, that always is more fulfilling to me. And obviously, I need the clients that want the luxury service, and that is what I typically market my company to. But when it's an elderly couple who comes out early in the morning to thank me for shoveling their driveway because they have a doctor's appointment that morning, I know they cannot do this. They cannot do this for themselves. And so not only am I the person that they hired, I'm also enabling them to continue to live life. And that's really special to me, especially when the plowers come through down the street and just shovel these or push these giant mounds of snow in front of the driveways. I am surprised, and maybe there have been lawsuits and I just haven't seen any of them or heard about them, but I am shocked that there are not more lawsuits where plowers block driveways and somebody needs to get out and they get their car stuck and it causes this huge either medical situation or whatever it is, because some of these mounds are 3 feet tall. A car is not getting over that, especially if it's frozen. If it's ice, a car, that's going to destroy a car. So to be able to go clear their driveway, clear their entrance to the street, we always clear the curbs. We go about 3 feet out, push all the snow, clear part of the street. So there is there's just straight access from the driveway down the street. That warms my heart. And that is something that motivates me to continue to do snow, because somebody has to do it. And it could be the neighbor, but they're not always going to do it. And so I think it is a great thing for elderly or people who are unable to do these things to hire somebody. And I've considered being able to provide certain discounts for people in those situations, just because it is so important that they have somebody to do it, and finances should not be the main reason that they can't receive those services. So that's what snow removal looks like right now. Primarily shovels, electric tools if I have to, really trying to keep it a quiet service, trying to be of no disturbance to the neighbors to boost my status and the neighbor's status. And so far it's worked out really well. And I'm excited to potentially increase this, maybe market it a little bit harder next season if I need to. But again, it is by far or by no means my favorite thing to do. And I know it is hard to find good help for services like that because people don't like waking up at 2 a.m. to go out and freeze their tushies off. So that's where I'm at. I'd love to hear how you guys do snow, if you guys have advice or just ways that you solved some of these noise problems or disturbance problems or hiring problems. I would be interested in what you guys have to say. And you guys can let me know either in the comment section of this podcast if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. I'd love if you guys would subscribe and comment and like this on YouTube so you guys can stay up to date with uploads as well as just communicate. What I'd like to do potentially is if we can find a date that works well for everybody to do a YouTube premiere, then I can be on there, and as you guys are watching the episode for the first time, you guys can comment and then I can join in and we can have some community discussion on these topics. And then if you guys would be willing to follow on socials, primarily Instagram and TikTok, but primarily Instagram. I'm a bigger fan of Instagram, and I think a lot of companies are. If you guys would be willing to follow me there, a lot of you have. I think close to 100 of you have, which is fantastic. But that is where I'm most active and most engaged, and I think it's the easiest platform to communicate on. So, with that being said, I'm going to close it off there for the day. I hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode, my interview with Patrick Little, the owner of the Finest Window Well Covers. It was a fantastic episode, an incredible conversation. He's a cool guy. He owns a cool business. He's had some cool experiences, and he has some cool insight on business and life, and it was a pleasure talking to him. So if you guys haven't listened to that, make sure to go back and check it out. Otherwise, I will see you guys next Tuesday. We are getting close to the season. We're only a couple months out. There's a little more hands-on practical prep I'm working on right now, decking out vans and trucks and getting everything ready to go. I'm very excited. I hope you guys are too. There's going to be more content to come as all of this progresses. So, hope you guys have a fantastic day. Be blessed. Work hard. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.